Hello, everyone. We are back on screen and we are live. And I'm here to introduce our next amazing speaker, whose name is Frank. In 2018, he moved to Himachal Pradesh, which is in India, and he founded the Four Tables Project. So check them out on Instagram. Make sure to follow them. Okay. So I'm going to introduce Frank on the live screen right now, and he will take over and tell you all about his many amazing projects. Hello, Frank.
Hi, I'm Frank Schlichtmann, sitting in a very small village on a rainy day, very much rain, in Himachal Pradesh. The village is called Gunehar, which is in Kangra Valley, at the edge of Kangra Valley. Yeah, I think I am on now. So earlier on, right now the project I'm working on, which is a natural building project with mud bricks and mud walls and all that. So earlier on, I went over to the site because of we just finally got the first really torrential monsoon rains. And everybody always says, oh, but how will a mud house survive the rains? So earlier on, I went over and just saw how perfect that kind of architecture is, even in the heaviest of rains. And immediately I tried to get in touch with Tanvia to tell her that instead of talking about multiculturalism and my own story, which I always find less interesting than other people, why don't I just show everybody the house for half an hour or 40 minutes or whatever duration I have and talk about the things, the innovations that we have been doing there. And then obviously that was the last moment thing. And that is a bit typical of people like me who are sometimes, due to their life history, extremely flexible and want to just change everything in the last moment. So I called up Tanvia and she was obviously in the other meeting. And then I walked back, and then now I'm going to go back to my original plan of what I wanted to talk about. And this is such a lovely opportunity, such a lovely format, which I have had a couple of talks talking about my art projects and so on. But somehow those formats I found were a little bit restrictive in the thoughts. I haven't really gone through all the all the participants, but I was listening to Philip Rashid earlier on, and I went through the whole speech, and I was amazed not only at his journey but also at commonalities of people like us. I'm not saying in the development itself, because if he's Dutch and with his Kurdish Bulgarian roots, it's a different story than being a Bengali German. But generally there is a feeling of openness, intellectual openness, which I find fascinating. So I'm interested in seeing more of what is happening on this forum. So what Philip said, which I can underline, is that when you have multiple experiences, sometimes even contrary ones, then he said he was interested in telling local stories with international quality. And I just totally underline that, because if you are restricted to a certain way of thinking and your identity is really, really strongly rooted in one culture or in one place, then I find that doesn't necessarily have to, but can very often restrict your intellectual perspective. And for instance, in my case, when I'm, say for instance, let's take the house again as an example. When I'm stuck somewhere, for instance, we're now stuck with I've been researching the outer layering of the house, the final shine, so to say, and how to make the floors and all that. Then you can start researching by going to the next mistri, the craftsperson here. And what you will find is that they by now know only how to lay tiles and marbles. So they're not going to give you much of a knowledge base. And then you can also, YouTube and see what other people are doing. And as soon as you start doing that, for instance, and you will find a house in New Mexico that is interesting to you, you will find a house in Spain that is interesting to you, you'll find a house in Denmark that is interesting to you. And so that is exactly what I think he means, and that is exactly what we all do, that we have the confidence to look beyond just the narrow world. That sometimes, I'm not criticizing, I'm not saying anything bad, but I'm just saying that sometimes the restriction comes from being too rooted in one thing. And I also find that being rooted and that kind of can lead to, cultural superiority complexes, nationalism, and stuff like that, who are multicultural and who have lived in different countries and who are not of one thing. Just can't be. I can be anything, but I can't really be a racist because I'm of mixed culture. So, and the same thing goes for ideas. You can't just restrict yourself to one idea. If your life experience has been such that that you just know different things that exist at the same time, and that they're not really very different, but you can take different experiences and fuse them together to create new things. And that, I think, is more or less the topic of this forum also. The other thing I also find interesting, I'm just going to pick up from Philip, that he goes to her hospitality school, I think, and then his mother spends all that money on him, and that then he says no, he doesn't really want to do it, and he starts doing this other thing, and then after a few attempts he says, and I once again gave up. And that, I find, is also something that happens very, very often when you have when you are not rooted in one thought or one way, and you are searching for that particular thing or those particular things, which is, I think, more correct to say, would be correct to say, then you are also more willing to give up something that you thought was right and try out something new. And that, I think, is the essence of creativity. Creativity is not that I've just learned something, a particular way of doing things, and then I'm good at doing it. Creativity is actually very often I learn something, I'm learning something new, and the new can overhaul the old, or I can keep some of the old and add some new things to it. And that is how creativity works. And so these are the two things that I took away from Phillips, apart from all the other stuff. So I'd like to first read something that I had written a while ago. I'm the father of a now 13-year-old boy, so I write down things and put them up on Medium. Not many things I have put up, but something. So when Tanvi approached me for this, I chose this little thing that would tell something about, what happened when I was a kid. So I'll start here. So I believe I can still see the day I was standing on the deck of a ship from Marseille, me all of 3 years old and the first time in India, Bombay. Below me, way below me, it seemed, was the dock, and someone was standing there we were waving at. My Bengali mother, my German father, maybe even my 2-year-old brother were waving. So I was to meet the first of the Dattas, since my mother was already a Schlichtmann, my uncle Timir, who had come all the way from Kolkata to meet us. And a new identity emerged, an Indian identity. I did not have any idea then that such a thing as a concept of individual identities existed, that I had been German until then and now would be Indian for more than a decade, then become German again for most of my adult life, and then become Indian again these last 9 years. I moved to Guner not in 2018, but in 2008. So I've been here for more than 13 years now. So let me be Indian for more than a decade, then become German again for most of my adult life, then become Indian again. These last 13 years seemed a bit much of hopping to and fro between identities without inevitably blurring the borders. That a person could be split in twos, threes, and even more supposedly different persons and cultural personalities is anyway a construct that the outside imposes upon oneself. That people are divided up into geographical regions, religions, skin colors, ideologies, and considered better or worse for it is nothing but idiocy. I think of Alok now, who is my son, his name is Alok, who is German, Indian, and Cambodian, but so far only belongs to Gunehar and Mount Carmel School in Bajnath, and only speaks English and Hindi and not a word of German or Khmer, but will one day soon want to be a son of the earth, with the full rights that are everyone's due, and will still be only one person with his own unique mind. So this is what I would like to say to you. I don't believe, Alok, that people in different countries are much different to each other, not at the core at least. It might seem that way sometimes, especially since people who have no way of knowing, as they have never really been anywhere or anything other than short-term tourists, keep insisting that it is so. The truth is, every person is unique anyway. All they have to do is know it. And if your uniqueness is different than those of others, you will have to learn to feel comfortable in your skin. So this is kind of note that I write down for my son. I had started writing these when he was 7, and
Hi, Frank. It's Tanvir. I think we might have a little bit of a problem with 1 second. Hello all. I'm so sorry to inform you that unfortunately Frank's internet is not working because there's been a power cut. So unfortunately he had to tune out 15 minutes earlier than he should have, but such is life. So anyway, but for all of you who tuned into his talk, and he gave us such a broad perspective on so much already, please follow him on Instagram and support his amazing work. And if he does happen to come online within the next 15 minutes, I'll make sure to go live again. Thank you guys, and stay tuned for our next speaker who will be at 3:30, Karuna Jenkins. Hello, everyone. Frank is back. There was a power cut at his end, but he's back, and he's here to tell us more about his many amazing experiences. Frank, please take the stage.
Yeah, this is one of the problems we have. I don't know if you have that in the cities, but here suddenly like the power goes off and Wi-Fi cuts off and so on and so forth. And the backup thing is now just being fixed up. So anyway, very sorry for that. And I don't know in the remaining time if I can really go very much into the depth of the thoughts. But I was reading to you about like how we got to India and how I've been writing these medium for my son to read one day. So I was reading about that, and then suddenly the power cut came, so I'm a little confused right now. But there was a second part to this which I wanted to read, because I wanted to kind of, I think a lot of the other speakers also will understand how it happens that you suddenly get uprooted. So I'm describing a small scene in our Kolkata house where my uncles live and all that. Here I see me again playing with other kids of my age. I am chatty and happy and symbiotically connected to all my new friends. In some ways, I'm actually chattier and happier than my play friends, who it seems to me are careful not to annoy their parents and the other grown-up friends of their parents. These grown-ups are sitting around in a large living room, drinking and telling each other tales while they laugh loud as their voices get louder. It is called Adda in Bengali. It is festive, there is a lot of food, and we children have all been prepared for the exciting evening, the party, all through the day. We have been dressed and combed nicely, talcum powder has been applied, and now we are running around with each other from one room to another. Then suddenly I'm called into the grown-ups room. Just me. Frank, come here, darling. Everybody meet Frank, my German nephew. To which somebody says, really? German? But he doesn't look like that, does he? So this is happening when I'm like standing there. I'm all of like 9 years old, I guess. And I'm trying to figure out who I am at all. So this is how it happens. When you are from different places, and you do not have one particular identity. You are not just Bengali, you suddenly become Bengali, or you are not just German, or you don't have the right color. Then there is a fascination with you, but at the same time, there is like you always have a little bit of that feeling that something fraudulent is going on. And this is something that kind of starts creating an alternative, not but like a mix of alternative identities for people like us. And since when from the outside and the inside, this is what I meant, that in every single situation you find yourself in my working life, you find that your perspective is broader, in the sense that you are not just looking at one particular thing from one angle, because you are simply not able to do that anymore. Your personality is not that anymore. So you have a different and more nuanced understanding of situations and facts, because you are not immersed in only one identity or another, just one identity. I remember, for instance, politically, when there was this Kargil war going on, and I was in Germany, and I could feel the whole range of emotions that was happening in India at that time from far away. And of course, I'm very connected to India, but I would never fail to also open the Dawn newspaper to see what the Pakistani perspective was. And so I was immediately looking for different perspectives to create a more wholesome image in my head of the situation. So this is something people like us automatically do, because like, I'm not just German, and I don't have just the German perspective, and I'm not just Indian, and I've traveled a lot to many different countries and made those my countries too. So I feel like I'm a little bit Cambodian as well. I'm a little bit British as well, because I lived there for a long time. I've been to the States and lived there for a while. So I can feel these different things, and these are the influences that one has. And that works its way into the things I find, like, for instance, I don't somehow strongly believe in one thing or other, apart from quality, aesthetics, and such things. And I'm also not anymore interested. I'm not the youngest anymore, and I'm not anymore interested in my own identity or finding my own identity anymore, because I just think that that's just a broad construct. And I'm more interested in applying myself to things I do, my creativity. I was lucky that when I was small, let's see how much time we have. When I was small, that one thing my family was that it was a very creative family. And so I, from very small age, was exposed to many creative things. And though I'm myself not, in the strictest sense, an artist, I have, in all the work that I've done so far in my life, and now with my new venture, the architecture project, the natural architecture project, I find that the most important thing is the quality of the structure and the aesthetics of the structure. And I'm ready to draw knowledge from the whole range of my mind, and beyond that, nowadays with internet and courses that you can do and stuff like that, it is absolutely not difficult to have a broader perspective. And so it's kind of like, what did I write here? So when you search for that something extra, you can look to the whole world, not just your backyard. And that is simply because you never really had your very own backyard. And this just really reflects on anything you do, anything. In the journal that I was writing, I go on to write about food because I have a cafe and and a hotel here, a mud hotel in Guneher. So I start writing about how my food experience throughout my life has been, from Germany to Bengal, from Bengal to Himachal, from Himachal to Germany, from Germany to, and so on, and Southeast Asia and Thailand and Cambodia and so on. So if somebody asks me what is your favorite food, I just can't say anything beyond maybe eggs or something like that. And that is because there is just so much experience, and that experience goes into the cooking in our cafe. Now I don't do it anymore. My erstwhile assistant has taken over, but she too does exactly, because she's been with me for 12 years, she does exactly the same. You just try to reach the best possible taste that is possible, and you can only try to even attempt to find that taste if you have had many meals in your life in different places. If you have eaten Vietnamese food in Vietnam and German wurst in Germany, then you know what a wurst should be and what pho should be. And so when you are trying to attempt to create something like this, then you have that huge experience to look back to, and you have that taste that you can try to search. And the same thing goes for art, for any kind of art. Quite often, like around here, we have been doing these residencies for young Indian artists, and a lot of people apply for those. And I'm always telling them that I want to see your whole range of thought. You start with a concept and you tell me what the concept is, and then we will discuss the concept. How is it relevant? Why is it relevant? Why is it global? I always ask that same question. Why is it universal? Maybe is the better word. And then I want to also ask them, how does it still relate to the village, so that it's not something that antagonizes the villagers because they're working between the villages. This is the art shop project. And at the same time, I also want to know, how are you going to source your material? What are the things that you're going to use? And you have 3 weeks time to create this work. So what is your work plan? And what do you think it will look like at the end? Though I'm not very stringent as a curator, but these things. And then I always tell them that please just go and source your knowledge from the whole world. And and so that's just a natural thing. I am myself, maybe now, with the architecture stuff that I'm doing, I renovated an old house using all natural techniques. Now we are building a big private house, 2,200 square feet, huge structure made of mud bricks and so on and so forth. And that might be something which I would call my creation, but then I am just basically always kind of looking, researching, trying out things and teaching them to the people. The Mistri, who originally didn't know anything but bricks and cement, now knows how to use the most complex mud and lime plastering and so on and so forth. So in my work, I have for a long time not been a filmmaker, by the way. So this is also funny. And whether I'll continue with my art curating work, I'm not very sure. I'm fascinated by, I don't know if you know Max Frisch, who is a Swiss author, one of my formative people in my youth and young days. And at one stage in his life, he just became an architect. He learned architecture and he built and designed certain things. And he said that was to ground him. And then he started writing again. So I don't know what will happen, but I'm very happy with this, what I have started right now, the 4 directions. And so here I go back to Rashid again. Like what he said, that he did it for 2 years. And then he said, well, it's not exactly what I want to do. So I'm ready to give up and try something new. And then I'm going to go and I can become a famous actor. But I'm not really very 100% happy with how it is actually happening. And so, no, I'm going to do something else. And this is also a quality that I think multicultural, international people have. And So that's what I actually wanted to bring to the table, and I hope I will at some point see a recording of the whole event, and also hopefully connect with some of you if there are similar interests or similar ways of doing things, or possibilities of collaboration. I'd love to explore those possibilities. So there are the part I read about this little boy running around in this house with all these other Bengali boys, and then he suddenly gets called up and says, "Look here, this is our German cousin," but the German cousin looks actually more like his mother than his father, is a point to express that it can go both ways. I know, like quite a lot of my friends in Germany are Turks, for instance. They have major problems in Germany. Obviously, don't want to get into it that much right now, but some of them have major problems, and so they go in their mentality one way or the other. Either they're totally assimilated, or they. One of my best friends in my German days was a writer called Feridun Zaimoglu, and he wrote fantastic German, and he wrote books about one book, Kanaksprach, which was about in Kiel, a Turkish boy who, revolts kind of, and he's just told from his life. The Germans were angry at him. Even my friends were angry at him for writing certain things. Anybody can write anything, according to my opinion. That he wrote fantastically. He not only expressed the feelings of this boy, the book was made into a film also, but also he wrote German much better than the other Germans I knew. So these kind of distinctions never really worked for me. And what I want to say is that you can go down this lane or that lane. On one, you can become very frustrated because you are not finding your place properly, because you feel discriminated against, because, and these kind of things. And the other is that you can just see in it the opportunity to say that, okay, well, some unpleasant things will happen along my life, but at the same time, just the possibility is there for me to draw from this much broader experience than that other person, and create something durable and lasting. Again, I'm coming back to Philip Rashid, who said that I want to be remembered when I'm dead. But I don't know, but I want my house to be standing. The house that I'm building now, I want it to be standing there long. Has their own way of wanting something lasting. What I sent Tanvir was, but for a growing number of people who are of mixed cultural background, it is impossible to fall back on secure forms of expression. And this can create conflict, but it can also be an opening to new ways of looking and finding solutions that create a more global, equitable world. And that is absolutely true. I can see how what is happening right now in the world is that people are so insecure that everybody was to just go and hide in their own bunker. And everybody's like, white is best, black is best, Hindu is best, Muslim is best, ISIS is best, this is best. And all these problems of trying to find narrow interpretations and narrow rootedness are exactly the problems that we have to overcome if we want to survive as a global world. For more than 60, 70 years now, we have been pointing out the environmental problems. And again, due to nationalism and due to capitalism, obviously, and a lot of other reasons, we have been ignoring all this. But we know that the solutions can only come if we create a more global, equitable world. And so in this is what I tell Alok now, he's 13, he understands more. I tell him that Here you are a boy sitting in Guner, and you can take up a job in Singapore if you're good at it, or you can go to Germany, or you can create something in Guner. This is an enormous, enormous possibility. So you might choose to say, oh, I'm a German in Guner and I'm so sad. But you might also say that, well, I will finish my school and this is what I want to do. Papa, can I just go back to Cambodia and stay there for a few years and check out what it is like in my mother's country? And isn't that fantastic? Isn't that fantastic? And I think other people can also draw from the experiences that we have. And I still have 6 minutes. Was a bit different. It turned out this speech a bit different than what I originally intended, which was more narrative. But because of the cutoff due to the electricity problem, I had to switch. So let me say something about me, like Rashid also has done. So I have been a filmmaker, a documentary filmmaker, but this was done in a much later stage in my life. And it was after that that I left Germany and went over and lived in Cambodia for 4 years, where I had a company called Footsteps Productions, and where I worked a lot as, I wanted to work a lot as a director, but I got much more jobs as a producer. So I worked for National Geographic and this and that. When I came to Himachal 13 years ago, I had planned to be here just for the 6 months, the first 6 months of my son's birth. That time, me and my wife were still together. And my mother lives here in Himachal. So I wanted her to be part of the birth. And now it's 13 years, I'm still here. And while I was here, I started this art project because I've always been interested in cultural projects. I've been working on some in Germany. And that was the art shop mainly, and in the woods. And this was, and is still, it's a triennial, it's a triennale. Every 3 years it happens. We have had 3. If anybody is interested, you can just Google up the word shop art shop, and you will definitely find a lot of newspapers and articles about that. Hospitality is something I've been interested in all my life. Also because I've been traveling a lot, so I've been seeing a lot. I've been also working for a German company and taking people around and researching for them new places. And I went through places where tourism was just starting. I've been to Vietnam when the markets were empty. I've been to Rajasthan when Samod was being planned, and so on and so forth. So I was always interested in that. And I've always also been interested in architecture. From the childhood on, I remember that I always preferred the mud houses here in Himachal to the new houses. We lived in one. My research in the last years, 2013 is when we started the 4 rooms guest house, which is a renovated old merchant's house. And from then on, I have just really been fascinated with the material itself and the possibilities of this and the durability of this, and to try to convince people that this is the much better material to build things with, not just like put bricks on each other and so on, but like you can really have contemporary modern architecture with all comforts and everything, and that you can do all that without cement and bricks and steel, because it's just a healthier and better material. So this is what I've been doing recently. And let me see if time is over. I think that's more or less what I can say right now.
Hi, Frank.
I kind of was like checking with the time, because I had kind of prepared something, but then the time fell out, so I had to change.
Yeah, no worries, I understand. But I think you've given us a nice broad perspective on all your experiences and work, and in terms of Germany and India and Four Tables Project, which, by the way, I think is fantastic. And for those of you who are watching, please follow his project, which is on Instagram, and you'll see updates and so on and so forth, which will be great. Frank, I just wanted to say thank you so much for tuning in and telling our audience more about filmmaking and art and so on and so forth. And yes, hopefully they've learned a little bit.
Thank you so much.